Hey everyone, welcome back. And we are in the end of the first half of season 1, which is basically talking about, I'm calling it the seasons of your life, right? Seasons and signs. Seasons of your life that kind of can get you from maybe a little bit emotionally shallow to help you get to your most authentic self. That is what we want to do here. So the first part is always going to be looking inward. And next week and for the next 12 weeks, we'll talk more about looking outward at the world at large and growing our awareness of things we might take for granted pretty much because we see them or think about them all the time. So that's just for next week. To end these first 12 weeks, which has been so fun for me, is a topic that I think, well, we all struggle with. And that topic is identity. Identity. Our identity, right? Our identity is you, it's me, it's who we are. And in this country, especially, we have a real issue with figuring out our who from our do. Who we are versus what we do. So for me, when I was teaching, like I've always thought of myself as a teacher, right? But there's a real epidemic of people taking the person that they are and intertwining it so much in the role that they fill, the hat that they wear, right? So it's very easy for boundaries to get blurred when that happens. So your identity is who you are. And I had a place 2 years ago where I was done teaching, obviously. I had gotten into trouble. I had a role thrust on me I never wanted, right? And I had to really think about, like, who am I? Right? At 28, when you think you know who you are and what you stand for, and you come across some tribulation and you do some stupid things and you didn't expect to find yourself where you are. I was faced with this idea of, like, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even know what I stand for. I don't even know what I want or why I want it. And it was a very strange place to be, right? And so it made me realize that who I was, it's not a teacher. That's what I did, right? I taught. It's not a caregiver, even though I did care for people. What it came down to was I was, at my core, just somebody who wanted to help people. At, like, bare minimum, rubber meets the road, ABC of me, I just wanted to help people. And I was like, how can I make a career out of that, right? And so you go into teaching. Well, I did. That's a lot of people at their core just want to help. Nurses, police officers, at one time maybe even politicians, lawyers, judges, cops, firefighters, teachers, obviously, right? Anybody who's a public servant, at their core, the thing they want to do is help. That's part of their identity. It's part of what they stand for. It's part of their value system, their belief system. Then sometimes life gets in the way and we get kind of recognized for being really good at that role, and we start to mix it with our identity. You see this happen a lot probably with women. Women, I feel a lot of times, we're very quick to have our identity sort of take on other roles. So when you have a woman who's a mother, she goes from one person to two people, right? Like the original Horcrux is as a child, because she kind of like splits herself into two. And at one time, she's two people. It's just really crazy to think about. So what ends up happening a lot of times with parents, but especially mothers, they lose the sense of who they are without their child, which is why empty nest syndrome is such a thing, and why a lot of times parents, their focus shifts so much to their kid out of necessity. A lot of times they forget to nurture themselves. And that's not just parents, although that we see that happen a lot, but you'll see it happen with maybe a woman who never liked football before, but then her boyfriend likes football, so she starts liking football. right? To try to like take on what he likes to do and make it part of her identity. And sometimes we do this out of necessity. We don't have a choice, right? Like, we have to sometimes we're thrust into roles at a young age, maybe, and it kind of becomes part of our identity. As for me, I am the firstborn in my family. And if you're a firstborn child, a lot of times that comes with caretaking, a caretaking role, or a leadership role, because you're the first one, you're trailblazing all the time. My family dynamic, we had a divorce, so I was like my mom's right-hand man, you know? And so that kind of role that you get thrust into, and a lot of times, like if you're me and I'm an overachiever, you gotta step right into it, and you're like, okay, I can do this. And after a while, that role becomes your identity. So what I thought my identity was at one time, like, always succeeding, which is impossible. No one's always succeeding. That was like a myth in my head, but this is what I thought. Always succeeding, like teacher. I never really valued friendship, because I had always found that like, people were quick to betray other people. So even though I wanted to help a lot of people, I didn't really want to be friends with a lot of people. So that was always something, like I never really considered myself a friend. Just like all those roles that we think about, we intermingle in our identity. And it's a very hard thing to do, to divorce the idea of who we are and what we do. Because especially in this society, we think I'm not good enough unless I'm performing this role. That was me all day. Like, I really had a problem with being good enough, and not for the world so much as for myself. I had such a terribly unrealistic standard for myself, which is just not fair to me, honestly, that I did that to myself and didn't realize it. A lot of times we do this where, I don't know why we do it, but we don't think we're enough as we are. Like, we're not pretty enough, we're not smart enough, we're not skinny enough, we're not blonde enough, we're not brunette enough, our boobs aren't big enough, we're not athletic enough, we're not strong enough, right? And a lot of that is societal pressure and the media. But after a while, that gets internalized. And so we start to compensate or overcompensate for where we think we're deficient. And instead, we have to be strong enough in our identity to know that we're enough just because of who we are. Like, I can never perform enough to be worthy, but I'm just me, and that makes me worthy. And anything else I do on top of that is awesome, but it doesn't make me better or worse. Just makes me, I achieved something or I didn't achieve something. I'm awesome because I'm me. Can't spell awesome without me. Right? And so that's really where we have to come to in ourselves. And our identity is a huge factor in that. Our identity, how we identify, our worth, our sense of self-worth, all of this goes together. And we have to think about ourselves as enough. We really do. And so anything that comes our way, for good or for evil, for success or for failure, won't shake us. And that's a really hard thing, especially in this day and age. So how do we get solid identities? We need to stop idolizing. Idolatry, idolizing, is a bad influence on our identity. So if we idolize a celebrity, or if we idolize a guy, or if we idolize our mom, or if we idolize our friends, if we idolize a sports athlete, we're looking at them like they're the pinnacle of what we need to be or what we wish we could be. And by saying, oh my God, you're so amazing, what we're really saying is, oh my God, I'm not amazing because I'm not you. So when we idolize, we really are traumatizing ourselves. And we're putting up this standard that we're not good enough unless we're doing this thing. So for a long time, I idolized this idea of getting a doctorate. Like it was this end all be all process. And I was really just going through the motions of getting a doctorate to get one. I had no idea what I was doing with it. So I was originally supposed to get my doctorate in literature. That's where I was going to go originally. I got into 2 schools and I had planned to go to one of them. And I ended up not going. And I was devastated. Like my whole sense of self-concept, my whole like hope for life, my whole sense of identity was like completely crushed. Because for 30 years I had said, I'm gonna get a doctorate. Ooh. And not getting a doctorate with other factors such as like got in trouble with the law, which I had never done, and I don't consider myself a rule breaker. Got in trouble in society, which like I had a bad reputation, and I was like, how did this happen? What I got in trouble for made it look like I was out to harm somebody. And I was like, I don't harm anybody. What? So all these things really started attacking my self-concept, where I was like, oh my God, maybe I really am as bad as people think, or maybe I am as bad as this mistake that I've made, you know? And then I didn't get the opportunity to go follow through with my doctorate, and I was like, I have nothing left to live for. And I know I'm not the only person who's come to that place. And it's an ugly place. And it happens because we're so busy looking out at what everybody thinks or what we think of ourselves, which is actually even worse. And we're not literally strong enough in our identities to say, okay, you know what? That didn't happen. Okay, maybe that's not supposed to happen. I'm still going to be a happy me, and I'm going to try to figure out what's next. Right? It's a really hard thing to do. And I can only say that if you've ever come to that place where you've lost yourself, there's only kind of one option, and it's to find yourself. And I did. I was like, okay, who am I? Who am I? This was terrible. At 30 years old, I was considered a criminal. I didn't have my eye on my doctorate anymore, so I didn't know what I was going to do. Wasn't teaching anymore. Was living at home with my mom. Wasn't dating anybody. Had no job prospects lined up, and was like, what am I going to do now? And my identity was in shatters. I was like, I don't know who I am. Every single societal crutch that a person can have, I had kicked away from me in like pretty much a year fell swoop. And don't get me wrong, like part of that, a lot of it is my fault. But that being said, I have experienced what I hope none of you ever experience. But if you do, it will help you figure out that we don't know ourselves without all the roles we have and all the hats that we wear, right? And every hat has its own set of rules. So every hat has like another 10 hats inside of it. Like if you're a girlfriend, not only are you somebody's partner, you're also maybe a caretaker, you're also a nurse, you're also like a lost and found, you also might be the cook in the house, you might be the one who does the laundry, you know, and you might have your own job. And then if you have your job, you have other hats to wear there. Let's say you're a nurse, right? Then you're literally caretaking, right? There's just so many different hats that are worn by all of us. And we become the hats. And we forget that there's still a person when the hats come off. And the hats do need to come off. That's a whole nother story for another day. Work-life balance. Whole nother story for a whole nother day. But back to my sad story, right? How I found myself. I stopped idolizing everything around me. I stopped idolizing the idea of getting a doctorate, which, by the way, still getting. You know, I'm 2 semesters into my doctorate. And just the right way this time, not the forced way. I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to do. But it's not gonna define me now. That's the difference. I'm not gonna find my worth and my value in being a doctor. It's cool that I'm gonna be a doctor, God willing. But I'm not gonna find my worth in that. I'm not gonna find my identity in that. And we need to get to that place. We people in general, we try to find our identity in money, in our significant other, in our house, in our kids, in our jobs. It's a huge one in our jobs. I was there. In our accomplishments, right? In our A report cards, in our sorority fraternity, in the bake sale, in the PTA, right? What we do as humans is we get into these organizations and then we try to internalize them and succeed in the organization, and then we define ourselves by that. And that can't be how it works. That's not where success is found. It's not how worth is made, and it's not how strong identities are formed. Because at some point, if ever you lose something, God forbid something happens where, you break up with someone, or they break up with you, or you're an athlete and you break your leg and you can't play the same way you used to, or you're a parent and your child dies, God forbid. These are things that shake our self-concept. They shake our identity. And we have to get to a point where we're strong enough to say, I miss that thing, or I'm so sorry that it happened, or I'm grieving, or my heart is broken and I'm torn up, but I'm still me and I'm still okay and I'm still here. I think those are some of the most powerful testimonies that you can have. They were for me anyway. It was extremely empowering despite everything I went through, that I was like, okay, I'm still here. Not that I didn't want to be perfectly honest with you. It would have been so much easier to not be here on this earth, on this planet. But I still had a pulse, and I still was. And so I was looking at these pieces of my life and I was like, who am I? And I found out, at my core, I'm somebody who wants to help people. I am somebody who respect is actually a really huge value that I have. Respect. I love cats. I love animals. I am a teacher. I want to teach people. But at the end of the day, I'm just a girl who likes the sun and who likes the beach and who is kind of an introvert and who just wants people to learn from her mistakes and her insight. You know what I mean? That's really it. At my core. I mean, yes, I'm a Christian. Of course, I'm a Christian. Cat mom. I'm a girlfriend. I'm a daughter. All those things. Right? But at the end of the day, I'm just me. I'm just me with my likes and my dislikes, my roles. And I'm kind of loud and outspoken, obnoxious, even though I'm introverted and don't really want to be around anybody. And I like to read. Right? I'm just this ridiculous conundrum of opposites. But we all are. We all have our things. And some of our qualities, our identifying qualities, are what helps us be successful in certain roles. But we have to make sure our qualities are honed and defined and they're part of our identity before we take on a role and start to try to internalize it and change ourselves for that role. Which is a really hard thing to do. Nothing I'm talking about is easy. None of this stuff is easy. None of it. I know that. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still going to learn and grow every day. But being aware is so important, right? Authenticity and awareness. Two key things about the company. And so, where do we go? What do you idolize? I know it's an ugly thing to think about, but idolization is anything that is more important than you. If you're a Christian, anything that's more important than God. As a Christian, you can idolize yourself, which is what Satan did, which is why a lot of things happened with Satan. But if you don't believe in anything else, hey, that's cool. What do you think of as more important than yourself? And again, for my Christian people out there, what do you prioritize above God? Those are the things you idolize. Anything you idolize, which is to say anything you think you cannot live without, is going to be a hindrance to your identity. And so it's really important to take that inventory of the things you idolize. People, money, cars, job, self. And try to bring them down. Remember last week we were talking about humility? And so that pride thing, it's really important to like bring down those, stop prioritizing those things, because at the end of the day, they're hurting your identity. Idolatry always hurts. Always. And we idolize these people who are people, instead of just being like, oh yeah, they're great, I enjoy them, but I don't need that. I'm enough within myself. I don't need that. So, I know, heavy topic to end this first half of the season. But I hope it's helpful, and I hope that you've been enjoying. Remember to subscribe so we can get those 100 viewers. And I'll be coming to you next week on Monday, YouTube, same time, with a whole kind of flip on, instead of looking into qualities that we can hone, looking out to signs that we can see and kind of learn from. All right, so I'm excited to bring that to you. It's been great talking this first 12 weeks, and I will see you next time.